understand that NASA satellite data is hugely valuable for farmers. Programs like NASA Acres and NASA Harvest use satellite imaging, continues to partner with private firms. The commercial data is not as easily accessible to researchers. And I think it's a balance. Obviously, the partnering with private has brought with it some success, but then you want to have the public institutions be able to access that data.
Certain scientific positions become overly political. I think that we should be making that data available to academic institutions and let their scientists and research draw their own conclusions.
Did you know the satellite data used to track crop yields for farmers in Minnesota, or really all over the world, comes from NASA? Senator Klobuchar is connecting the dots between our tax dollars funding NASA and the crucial data we use right here on Earth for agriculture and medicine. But here's the problem. As NASA relies more on private companies for missions, that data is becoming locked away, inaccessible to the public researchers who need it. This hearing is about making sure that publicly funded science stays public. Let's dive into the nominee's response.
Agriculture data, Mr. Isaacman, I don't think many people understand that NASA's satellite data is hugely valuable for farmers. Programs like NASA Acres and NASA Harvest use satellite imaging to forecast production and monitor crop yields. I'm the ranking member on the Ag Committee, and I've introduced legislation called the Agriculture Innovation Act to strengthen that data collection. Could you talk about your plans to preserve and expand those types of monitoring programs, weather patterns and the like, and how you can better work with the Department of Agriculture?
Sure, Senator. I appreciate the question. As I mentioned with Senator Moran before, at the present time, we at least inhabit only a single planet, and it's probably important for us to continue to study it to the greatest extent possible. NASA's had a long-running program with Intelsat. I fully support that we should be gathering data that especially contribute to hardships here on Earth. I mean, obviously, there's great agriculture opportunities, but these can be impacted by droughts and wildfires and flooding, and grateful that NASA has the capability to gather some of this data in real time. I don't see that going away ever.
This segment really reframes what NASA is. It's not just rockets and astronauts. It's a vital Earth observation tool that helps our entire economy function. The connection between satellites in orbit and your ability to forecast drought in Nebraska is huge. The nominee's quick commitment shows he understands that this Earth observation data is not a secondary mission. It's essential for national resilience against climate-related disasters.
Thank you. Other end of our state, Mayo Clinic, which I'm sure you're aware of. They've been involved in space medicine since 1960. When research related to the force of gravity during acceleration influenced the position of seats for the Mercury spaceflight program. And most recently, they've identified some important research project in the field of aging, regenerative medicine that can be conducted in space. How will you continue to support NASA and institutions like Mayo's efforts to advance science that helps here on Earth?
Senator, I couldn't agree with this area of study more. We are actually quickly reaching a point where it's no longer a technological limitation for deep space type missions, but human physiology and psychology. So in that respect, I obviously fully support all the studies that can be done so that when the day comes that we actually send NASA astronauts to Mars, that they can come home healthy enough to tell us about it. This is probably the single greatest accomplishment we've had on the International Space Station over the last quarter of a century, is keeping humans alive in an environment that...
This is the hidden gem of NASA research, microgravity medicine. The fact that research on astronauts aging in space can help us fight aging here on Earth is incredible. The nominee's focus on human physiology, the fact that humans are the weakest link in a Mars mission, makes a powerful case for continued investment in these types of space medical research partnerships, like the one with Mayo Clinic.
Is quite challenging.
Mm-hmm. And then just on the research side, a lot of academic institutions like the University of Minnesota rely on publicly funded data from NASA's missions. And as NASA continues to partner with private firms, the commercial data is not as easily accessible to researchers. And I think it's a balance. Obviously, the partnering with private has brought with it some success, but then you want to have the public institutions be able to access that data for the public portion of this, which has helped us. I'm not going to go through all the inventions and things that have come out of this type of space mission. So what steps will you take to ensure that data from NASA missions continues to remain available for researchers across the country?
Senator, I fully support it, and I think this actually goes to some of the questions from Senator Markey before. I absolutely think that NASA should be making available all of its data, especially its Earth observation data, freely to academia, so they can draw their own conclusions from it. I don't think it's the most helpful every 4 or 8 years when administrations change that certain scientific positions become overly political. I think that we should be making that data available to academic institutions and let their scientists and research draw their own conclusions.
This is the money shot. When taxpayers fund a mission, even if a private company is running the rocket, the scientific data generated should belong to the public domain. The nominee's answer is exactly what researchers wanted to hear, an unwavering commitment to open data access. He smartly links this to depoliticizing science, suggesting that giving raw data directly to unbiased academics is the best way to ensure facts prevail over political agendas.
Thank you very much. Mr. Haynes, congratulations on your nomination. We have a lot of manufacturers in my state, a lot of them high-end robotics manufacturers. We do a huge amount of trade, not just in the ag area where we're fourth in the country for ag exports, but throughout our industries. And could you talk about data that the Department of Industry Analysis can provide Congress and the public, transparency data with the price impacts of things? We're obviously concerned about tariffs.
Thank you, Senator. I would say a few things. We usually provide data as it compares to bilateral trade flows and sectoral competitiveness. We now provide broad economic data in terms of labor statistics or GDP growth or anything like that. Any data that we do have on specific sectors, especially as they are in your state, happy to discuss those with you and your staff. And by the way, thank you to your staff for meeting with you yesterday and understanding a little bit more about your priorities on the committee.
This hearing ultimately boiled down to a crucial philosophical question about the future of space exploration. Who owns the data generated by public investment? Senator Klobuchar clearly articulated the enormous debt we owe to NASA's public data, from the food on our table, agriculture data, to the medical breakthroughs happening at places like the Mayo Clinic. The nominee's firm commitment to ensuring that all publicly funded data remains freely available is a major win for transparency in academic research. It signals that even as the private sector, like SpaceX and Blue Origin, plays an increasing role in space, the fundamental principle of open science will be protected. We cannot allow the efficiency gained from privatization to come at the cost of essential scientific knowledge being locked away behind a paywall. That data is our collective insurance policy against environmental disasters and a key driver of American innovation. The commitment is great, but now the nominee will have to follow through and establish clear contractual guardrails with private partners to make sure this promise is kept. I want to know what you think. Should NASA legally require all private partners on publicly funded missions to make 100% of their non-proprietary scientific data immediately available to the public? Or should the companies retain more rights to monetize that data? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.